Hey guys, so today we're talking more about sustainability. And last time I asked you to think about actions that you can take to make your lifestyle a little bit more sustainable for the world and generations to come. I hope you brainstorm some good ideas because we'll be talking about those as well. But today we're really going to focus on environmental impact assessments, and ecological footprints. Now I'm sure you've heard of your carbon footprint before, but there's other ones we can measure as well. So let's take a look at the significant ideas we're going to see in this video.
So our ideas for this video are environmental indicators and ecological footprints can be used to assess sustainability, and environmental impact assessments, which we call EIAs, play an important role in sustainable development.
So before a development project is undertaken, there's going to probably be an environmental impact assessment. And this is going to assess the environmental, social, economic impacts of the project, and it's going to predict and evaluate the possible impacts and suggest mitigating strategies for the particular project. So suggest things that it can do to help either decrease the negative effects it will have on the environment or on local communities, or to do other potential problem-solving strategies before the project is begun. After an EIA is completed, it's normally followed by an audit and continued monitoring, and every country has a different way of monitoring this and following up with their EIAs. Every country has different guidelines for EIAs as well. So in some places there's not necessarily a requirement to implement an EIA's suggestions, and a lot of socioeconomic factors will probably influence the outcomes of a project as well. When we talk about development projects, we're talking about large-scale housing developments, we're talking about roads, we're talking about building airports or quarries. So there's a lot of applications of EIAs. When it comes to EIAs, there are a lot of criticisms. Number one being the lack of standard practices across the board. A lot of people don't feel like the practitioners, the people who are involved in the projects, aren't properly trained. And another criticism is that there's not enough talk about the indirect impacts of a project. Most of the time EIAs are just going to focus on the direct impacts of a particular development project. Other times too, there's a lack of system boundaries that are defined for the particular project and for the impact. Now let's talk about ecological footprints. Now these were developed back, or the way to measure these were developed back in 1992 by two scientists at the University of British Columbia. An ecological footprint is the area of land and water required to sustainably provide resources at the rate at which they are being consumed by a given population. If the EF is greater than the area of land available to a population, this is an indication of unsustainability. Footprints can be measured at the individual level or levels of cities or communities or even entire countries. Now let's bring it back to our own habits for just a little bit. We talk about wanting to conserve water, and you may think, all right, we have lots of water problems, obviously. There's a drought in California, lots of other issues as well. Unfortunately, most of the water on Earth is not potable. It's not readily available to us. A lot of it is trapped in glaciers, and we can't get it out until, I guess, unless they all melt and then they go into the oceans. And then in the oceans we have salt water. And you may be thinking, oh, why don't we just use some desalination processes, get the salt out of the water, and presto, we have, millions of gallons of wonderful drinking water. Unfortunately, that process is very energetically costly, and so it's just not efficient, and it is not a reasonable solution to getting the water that we need for enough people and the processes that we use water for on Earth. So thinking back to all the water that you use every day, sure, you brush your teeth, you take a shower, you're going to wash your dishes, you're going to wash your clothes, but think about all the products too. Every single thing that you consume or that you buy is probably going to be using some water. So let's go over some of the biggest uses of water, and hopefully you won't be too depressed by the end of this video, but it's important to realize this when thinking about ecological footprints. So unfortunately, our favorite meats consume a lot of water. For 1 pound of chicken that is edible, it's gonna use about 468 gallons of water. Think about 468 gallons for 1 pound. Beef, however, is getting up into the 2000s. So depending on the source that you look at, anywhere from about 1,500 gallons to 2,000 gallons of water are used to create 1 pound of edible beef. That's a lot of water for just, a pound hamburger. I mean, okay, a pound hamburger is a big hamburger, but still, that's a lot. At other food sources, and I know I keep talking about corn, but corn only takes about 100 gallons, or 108 if you want to be specific, of water to produce 1 pound of usable corn. So think about all the ways we use corn, not just as corn on the cob or corn from a can, but all of the components of corn that exist in other foods like corn starch, corn syrup. Think about how many times you're going to see high fructose corn syrup on something that you will eat. So look at the labels next time you're in the grocery store and see how much corn actually appears. It's a lot. Also, products like your clothing, your jeans especially, are big water takers as well. So just be aware, and when you shop, be responsible about it. Maybe try a few more consignment stores rather than buying things new every time. Maybe borrow other clothing, or maybe try to buy clothing from sustainable stores. It's different and it's uncomfortable to change your lifestyle like that. And I don't want to advocate for everyone to become a vegetarian, but the reality is that that would make a much healthier planet if everyone did reduce their meat intake over the course of the next few years. All right, think about that and we'll talk about it later.